I'm thinking about sexual hang-ups, mostly in relation to Peach's video and some comments that she left on my video response, and a little bit of discussion between Peach and Pyro that went on one of Pyro's videos. Sexual hang-ups, it's a fascinating topic. Yeah, I mean some of Pyro's stuff was really interesting actually. He did a couple of videos around video making, which I thought was really interesting. And well, one of the things he's saying, which I kind of acknowledged, but he went into much more detail, which is fascinating, was about, you know, what happens when you edit a video, and what kinds of, you know, just what kind of an artifact it is really, as opposed to one of these things, which is just a kind of rambling, straight to camera, unedited thing. You know, what he was saying, if I understand him correctly, is if when you edit a video, you have all those opportunities not only to, you know, frame yourself properly, light yourself properly, make sure your makeup's on and you look smart, which I never do unfortunately, but also that you have the opportunity to edit, and that's interesting, so you can get your argument straight. But one of the other things you were saying, which I thought was interesting, was that not only can you get your argument straight at the edit, but you can also kind of get yourself straight. You know, if I understand you correctly, Pyro, you seem to be saying that in these kind of videos, and I would agree with you, in these kind of videos that I make, and the standard YouTuber, straight to camera blah thing, there's all those opportunities for kind of psychological leakage. You know, lots of stuff that's happening in the back of a person's brain. If you subscribe to any kind of psychological theory, all those non-conscious, unconscious, subconscious processes, you know, may well reveal themselves in the pauses, the intonations, the breathing patterns, the flush of the skin, the gesture, the Freudian slip, the accidental turn of phrase. All that kind of stuff leaks out when you're doing this stuff, and if you don't edit it, it's still there, and you could analyse it later, or it could have an effect on the viewer. And of course, if you edit, then you have the opportunity to edit your psyche in the same way as you're editing your video, and not let those things leak out. That sounds really interesting. I don't know if I'd entirely subscribe to it. I should just say, by the way, it's quite a nice day here in Cheshire. I'm down by the river, little stream here. Railway lines up there. You probably heard the train go past a minute ago. I'm near this area which I'm starting to call the fort. These weird pipes here, as you can see. I don't know, every time I go past here I always think, yeah, I'd really like to get inside that pipe. I'd like to get deep inside that pipe. Yeah, I did get inside one of those pipes once, but it was really dirty and it felt a bit dangerous. So I'm not sure if I'd like to go into those pipes very often. In fact, I'm not sure if anybody should go in those pipes, really. Someone sent me a clip of a film called Stalker, with people going into one of those pipes. And they throw these nuts in those pipes. I wouldn't like to throw my nuts up a dirty pipe like that. Yeah. Anyway, that's by the by really. Sexual hang-ups, yeah, that's it's an interesting topic. And if I understand Peach correctly, and I may be misinterpreting here, in which case this is about somebody else who just sounds like Peach. If I understand the argument correctly, the argument is that unless I'll personalise it, I have some kind of sexual hang-up. I'll just say at the outset I do, and I'll tell you what those are in a minute. I have some kind of sexual hang-up. That sexual hang-up is either consciously or unconsciously informing my opinions and my arguments, my ideas. And because that's the or maybe just motivating, and because that's motivating them or possibly shaping them in some way, then those ideas are invalid. That's one point. And following on from that, anything I say subsequent to that to either qualify, justify, extend, expand, you know, make more cogent, in my view, any ideas, anything I do like that is also suspect, because of its motivation within what you might refer to as sexual hang-ups. And anything I say it doesn't need to be believed. And Peach, if you watch this video, you've said that you don't believe some of the things I've said pretty much because you think it originates in sexual hang-up. That's an interesting little constellation of thought, isn't it, that? Several things. Firstly, and I will say, I'm going to say it again, I've got sexual hang-ups, as do you. But what's that going to do with it? I mean, what's that going to do with it? I mean, do we judge the quality of an opinion by the motivation of the person making it? Do we do that? Do we judge the motivation of a piece of scientific data by the motivation of the scientist? Do we judge the quality of an artwork by the motivation of the person who made it? Well, not really. Do we judge a philosophy? Do we judge, do we judge the philosophy of Kierkegaard based on the fact that he left his girlfriend? Do we judge the quality of, I don't know, God, put a philosopher in there, you know what I mean? Do we judge Tchaikovsky's music on the grounds he was homosexual? No. So I don't think we do that. We judge the quality of an argument and a discussion and the value of it, not even the quality of it, just the value of it, whether it serves some purpose, in its own terms, not according to either the morality or the sexuality or the psychology or the politics of the person making it. Don't we? I mean, that's the rational view, I would have thought. Yeah, secondly, this belief thing. I mean, the same thing applies, doesn't it? If you're disqualifying everything a person says, either in support of their discussion, in support of their argument, or in qualification of their argument, if you're discounting everything they say because you're saying that it's... Sorry, all these trains are going past. If you're discounting what they say because you think it originates in a sexual hang-up, then isn't that a bit of a judgmental position? Particularly since this term sexual hang-up is so interesting. Sexual hang-up, as far as I know, isn't an objective term. It comes out of either a sense of morality, in which case by you saying I have sexual hang-ups you're making a moral judgment about me, and I'm not really comfortable with that. Or it's some kind of pop psychology statement or vernacular psychology. It's not a real psychology statement, is it? It's a kind of pop psychology assessment. You think that I have some kind of damage or some kind of dysfunction in my psychology which is producing a sexual hang-up. Well, quite apart from the fact you're not qualified to make any judgment like that. Again, isn't that a bit discriminatory? Isn't that a bit discriminatory? Isn't that just disqualifying a whole slew of people? You know, either of those things, whether it's a moral judgment you're making against me, Peach, or whether it's a psychological judgment against me, it's not good, is it, really? It's not good. I mean, the whole cognitive diversity movement that's around right now says that, you know, people should not be discriminated against. What people say should not be discriminated against based on differences in their cognitive functioning. So if you're saying that, that's a bit weird. And I'm sure we're in agreement that we shouldn't discount what a person says because of their morality. Or maybe we're not in agreement. We should be in agreement, I think. So that's all a bit weird, really. Let's get on to this what is my sexual hang-ups and maybe some other people's. I do have a sexual hang-up, and I've told you what they are, actually. I listed most of them in the video, How Much for a Filthy Sanchez. You know, I have a real problem with sexuality that involves feces. You know, scat play, I think it's referred to, shit. And just as a side note, I took the list of sexual practices from that largely from an episode of South Park. Very funny episode of South Park. Yeah, I do have a bit of a sexual hang-up about sex involving shit. I know it's fine for some people, and I'm not legislating against it in the privacy of one's own bedroom. Fine, do what you want. But, you know, it makes me a bit queasy. I wouldn't want to see pictures of it or movies of it. I wouldn't want to hear stories about it. I certainly wouldn't want a scat bar opening next to me in my street. And if it was, yeah, I would have some problems with that. And I don't think I'd be the only one. So yeah. And if I'm understanding sexual hang-up correctly, and maybe I'm not, the sexual hang-up that I'm confessing to there, a sexual hang-up about scat, a sexual hang-up about Filthy Sanchez, is one that grounds itself in my self. It doesn't have any wider application than that. I wouldn't claim it to. I personally would not be able to do that kind of play because I am emotionally and physically not up to it. I have sexual problems, emotional and physical sexual problems associated with things like Filthy Sanchez, Glass Bottom Boat, the practices that I've already talked about. As I say, I'm not judging anybody on that. They don't have any wider application. But if you're saying that I can't make a statement about things that I have emotional and physical problems with, then we need to have another conversation. Actually, I wish we hadn't had this conversation. I mean, I made that video nearly a month ago. You know, I've moved on to other things. You know, I'm talking about this stuff now. You know, really. I'm just doing damage control right now because you've got so many bloody subscribers and you all think I'm a pervert. That bothers me a lot, you know, because as I say, I do feel I've been misrepresented. And you kind of know that, Peach, because, you know, not only did you look at that video, you also read the comments, and I went to some pains in that Filthy Sanchez video to answer comments very carefully, to open out the discussion in ways which I thought would be interesting. And if you've read those and you say you have, and you contributed,